and now introduce my colleague, Dr. Cheryl Finley, who's the director of the Atlanta University Center Art History and Curatorial Studies Collective. She's also a distinguished visiting professor in the Department of Art and Visual Culture at Spelman College. We are super excited that they are co-sponsoring today's seminar with us. So her unit is housed in the Department of Art and Visual Culture at Spelman, and her innovative program aims to shape the future of the art world and position the Atlanta University Center as a leading incubator of African American professionals in this field. So Dr. Finley, thanks for joining us today. Would you like to say a few words?
Yes, I would love to. And thank you so much, Dr. Washington, for that warm welcome and all the amazing information and work that you're doing at the AUC Data Science Initiative. It's so exciting to me to see everything that's happening on campus and in the world, and the connections that are being made that go as far and all the way up to the top of the White House. So I know that you're spreading the word. I'm really happy to be in the position to co-sponsor this event with Dr. Gaskins today. As I shared earlier, I've been following her work for quite some time. I'm the director of the Atlanta University Center Art History and Curatorial Studies Collective, and our program began in 2018 with a $5.4 million grant from the Alice L. Walton Foundation. As Dr. Washington shared, we are positioned to really change literally the face of the art industry by infusing it with Black talent and with innovative ideas that our students in art history and curatorial studies are teaching us as teachers, and we are learning from them, but we're also shaping the way that interdisciplinarity, including data science, can affect change within the art industry and within museums. One of the things that I did want to share about our program is that we offer at Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta University majors in art history, a minor in curatorial studies, and also a minor in art history. Our program is set out to be truly interdisciplinary in a way that we can think about how the art industry and thinking about art history as a discipline that has been very narrowly defined historically can really go about being changed and being brought more into the realm of how we see African American and African diaspora art making an effective change within the museum industry through interdisciplinary connections. One other point that I wanted to share just in terms of how we started out and why our program relates so closely to the work that Dr. Washington and Dr. Gaskins are doing and colleagues in data science is that it was actually in 2017, 2018 that the Mellon Foundation conducted a study, and that study was looking at the leadership roles in museum professions. And that study revealed the great disparity and lack of diversity in leadership roles in museum professions. So I'm talking about people like curators, I'm talking about people like art handlers, I'm talking about registrars, and also directors of museums and others affiliated within the art industry, including even the commercial side. And so data science is at the root of what we do at the AUC Art Collective, including working with artists and art historians and curators. And I think that it's with data science that we'll be able to affect the change that we seek. So thank you so much again for this opportunity. If you're interested, please come and visit us at www.aucartcollective.org. We have a number of great classes running every semester, and we look forward to seeing you on campus. We also have distinguished lecturers that will be presenting their work throughout the academic year, and just look out for our advertisements and information going forward. Thanks so much again, and have a great session.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. Finley.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go back and share my screen here and announce our speaker today. We're in for a really good treat today on artificial intelligence in the artist's hands. Dr. Nettrice Gaskins is a digital artist, academic, cultural critic, and advocate of STEM fields. In her work, she explores techno-vernacular creativity and Afrofuturism. Dr. Gaskins teaches, writes, fabs, and makes art using algorithms and machine learning. She has taught multimedia, visual art, and computer science with high school students. She earned a BFA in computer graphics with honors from Pratt Institute and an MFA in art and technology from the School of Art Institute in Chicago. She received a doctorate in digital media from Georgia Tech, and her thesis started with making the connections of graffiti and mathematics. Currently, Dr. Gaskins is a 2021 Ford Global Fellow and the Assistant Director of the Leslie STEAM Learning Lab at Leslie University. Her first full-length book, Techno-Vernacular Creativity and Innovation, is available through the MIT Press, and I'll put a link in the chat momentarily. And her AI-generated artworks can be viewed in journals, magazines, museums, the Smithsonian, and all across the web. Dr. Gaskins, we are delighted to have you join us today and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, and good afternoon, depending where you're coming from. I'm going to share my screen now and get started. It's interesting. This is Michelangelo's Hand of God and Adam, but on the left side is kind of the digital portrait, digital shot of the original. And on the right is using AI to recreate that. So they're both. So to talk about art and AI and talk about what's happening currently, on September 2nd, there was a New York Times article about a art contest, I think it was in Colorado. And the picture that won the first prize or the prize was AI generated. And I guess other artists in the competition they weren't happy. So this was kind of looking at kind of what was happening only a few days ago when people are starting to enter contests and our competitions and submit portfolios that have art, AI art in them. And the other one is this I found that talks about how AI is blurring the definition of artist from American Scientist. So talking about advanced algorithms using machine learning, all these words, and I'll talk about all of this to create art autonomously. So these are just some recent articles that I think really talk to what's happening in the art world and in media as it's become very interested in what is happening with art in the AI space. So what is the role of AI in art? So artificial intelligence is an umbrella term to include both old innovation in AI as well as the new emerging AI, such as machine learning, facial recognition, AI, and things like that. But the AI itself, or AI art as we know it now, lacks its own intrinsic psychic meaning. They're agents kind of like Siri and Alexa. They're not creating art, rather they are replicating it. For example, neural networks, which are the kinds of where the tools that I use are coming from, they're trained on tens of thousands of original artworks created by humans. So, you know, they don't it's not an art. The AI is not sitting somewhere in a studio waiting to get a prompt or get an image to work with. It's using data from many, many, many different sources to do what it does. So it does not sort of act alone. It's an agent like Siri and Alexa. Go to the next slide. And so I did a chart fairly recently to describe kind of the range between humans and the machine. And so as it relates to art and AI, there are at least 5 different types of platforms or tools. If we go all the way to the machine side, we have distributed computing. So using something like Electric Sheep provides it animates and evolves these kind of fractal images that are distributed on network computers, and it's sort of, you display them as screensavers. So if you've ever used something like iTunes in the past, way back when you could just have this kind of screensaver moving to the music, so that's kind of what Electric Sheep is like. But it is using artificial intelligence, but very little human interaction and human contributions in that. Generative adversarial networks, or GANs, they generate images and other media based on distribution of data underneath. Runway ML stands for machine learning, has been a platform for artists to use machine learning tools such as GANs and intuitive ways. And GANs work, it's a neural network, but they kind of compete against each other. That's where the adversarial part comes from. And it's pulling from thousands of images in order to do what it does. And so the previous slide that I showed kind of shows you the type of thing that you would get in a GAN platform kind of images. They're kind of like warped, very much like Francis Bacon, if you know that artist, very kind of tortured looking portraits and things, but very kind of skewed. But I'll talk a little bit more about GANs shortly. And then the hot AI right now to use is natural language processing. It's kind of in the middle. It's concerned with the interactions between computers and human language. There's OpenAI, DALL-E 2 is the one of the tools you could use. Dream by Wombo is another. And of course, there's Midjourney, which I do a lot of my work in currently, but there's more and more of these tools for NLPs coming up, and I'll talk more about that too. For many years, meaning since 2017, I've been using image style transfer, the artistic stylization of images, otherwise known as either neural style transfer or image style transfer. It renders new images using multiple styles. So Deep Dream Generator, for example, takes two images. There's a content image or a source image and a style reference image, blends them together so the output looks painted in the style of the style reference image. So for example, if I took a portrait of Kamala Harris and I wanted to recreate her and paint her as Picasso might, I can give the machine the a content image or source image of Kamala Harris, our vice president, and I would give it a Picasso painting. In some cases, beyond this particular tool, you could give it 300 images of Picasso, and then the AI's goal is to recreate the Kamala Harris picture as in the style of Picasso. And so over next to that is pose estimation. We move away from static images into movement and movement of the body. So it detects human body poses in an image and locates people in the stance of their bodies by analyzing the image with a machine learning model. So there's a collection of open source interactive web experiments designed to allude to the possibilities of using something like PoseNet, which is using pose estimation to create a relationship between movement and a machine. It requires more human interaction. So I have this further over towards actually the person or the human, the artist. So there's the kind of a range of tools and platforms and technologies that all fit under AI, artificial intelligence. And some of them are newer, some are older, some are evolving, people are just experimenting with them. They're open source, but this is kind of the landscape at the moment. So generative art is when I talk about all the stuff as it relates to AI art, it's generative, meaning the machine generates something. And it's usually autonomous, but sometimes it can be other than that. So this particular artist does stuff based on GAN algorithms developed by AI and inspired by fluid dynamics in nature. So you can see a picture of his work. These are moving, immersive installations in spaces where you walk into a space and then experience something. But he's using GAN, as you saw before, it's generative adversarial networks. So based on this distribution of data, usually thousands of data at a time. And then we have GANs plus natural language processing, or NLPs. So this is Wombo, Dream by Wombo, and it's an app and it's online. And it's basically two artificial neural networks working together to create images. And so the names, one is a GAN and the other is a NLP. So when you're using the tool, you're doing kind of both. So in this particular example, Miles Davis was the reference or the content image, and I actually did put a photo. I'm not sure. I think I put a photo, but I might not have. I might have just used the prompt. So you can see the prompt in the bottom part of each one of these pictures says Miles Davis. And then Wombo, Dream by Wombo, the app generated these 3 examples. And you could see some likeness of Miles Davis, but it's very abstract. So if I were to do something less representational and more abstract, I would use something like this. As an output, it looks like trading cards, but you could crop this or save it another way so that it looks more like like an image that is not a trading card. And so this is Wombo. And it is an example of both a GAN and an NLP. So using a text prompt. Whenever you see things that require text prompts, they're NLPs or natural language processors. Okay. What I've used the most is image neural style transfer, and it's called the artistic stylization of images. And the first layer of the process picks out certain elements of the source image, in this case, Mona Lisa. Next, additional layers pick out more and more details, replacing these pixels with numbers. There's the style, which you see here in the middle image. And finally, it's combined to create original content in the style of the other images. So we move from Mona Lisa, the original example of the original, and then we have this kind of abstract work, and then it combines the 2 on the far right. And so this has been around since about 2015. It came out of Google and out into the world for people to be able to play around and create their own platforms, and around 2015, 2016. So when I'm thinking about the work that I do, I am an artist, but I'm also someone who, has a computer graphics and computer science background. So oftentimes I'm combining my knowledge of color theory and my cultural production knowledge of improvisation, along with the algorithms that generate these images to produce my work. So this is Deep Dream Generator, and Deep Dream Generator is a free program up to a point. And you can see here, this is the platform. And there are 3 types of algorithms, basically, to create images. One is Deep Dream. Deep Dream is the original out of Google, and it's very kind of LSD trippy images. So if you've ever seen portraits that kind of look like made up of dogs, cats, and other animals inside of the image, then that's Deep Dream. Thin style is kind of a surface level combination of images, and deep style is where I prefer to be, and it's a deeper, and I'll show some examples of that. I did create an Instructable, and there's a link there in the slide, but I'm going to come down here and minimize my screen. And Instructables, if you don't know anything about Instructables, they are how-tos for community makers, really. And you can put up, generally things of how to do certain things. In this case, how to make art using algorithms, and specifically using Deep Dream Generator. I used a public domain image of Billie Holiday, and I demonstrate using, I brought in some African textiles as the style image and recreated that image. And then below is the how you would do it. There's a little introduction in terms of what Deep Dream is, and then there's like what supplies you would need. You'd set up a free account, but if you wanted to, you could with a pay, if you're paying a certain amount, you get more hours, you get more images you can generate at a given time. The resolution is higher, so you can come at it from any way you want. You find your source photo, so I go to public domain to the public. And you can find images that you're free to use without permissions, and then generate your imagery, choose your styles. Here's some examples of styles that I've used in the past, including the one for Billie Holiday. And then you experiment with settings. So there's the resolution of the image. You can do a lower resolution, a higher resolution. You can enhance it in different ways. You can iterate, have the machine or the AI iterate it, so it runs it, a few times in this process to create an output that you might like. There is kind of a README kind of thing in there, so you could find out more about what each one of these things will do and what they mean. And then you run it and you get your image, and then you can save it either privately to yourself or with the community at Deep Dream Generator. Where this hits for me is I used this to create 11 portraits in the Smithsonian. This is one of Helen Keller. So there are 11 portraits in this Futures exhibition at the Smithsonian that closed in July. It was up for it was up for a while. And you can see how it's placed. In this case, the Helen Keller portrait's placed next to the Braille machine. She was known to innovate. For her Deep Dream image, I use a source photo of her, and then I use things like Braille as the style images, and things like lace and sepia colored types of things. And so each of these portraits has a similar approach, using kind of things that come from what they've contributed to the world as the styles, and recreating the images. So it could be blueprints, it could be maps, it could be different artworks and different types of things in the world as images that become styles for the portraits. And so this is from the Smithsonian show. And then you can see here, some people can reply and say, I made it. And you can see that they've shared what they made based on going through the steps for the Instructable. And so that's what I did to sort of share out this process. It's been around for quite a few years. We'll move on from there. And okay. And so the Deep Dream images are kind of in many different places. So I have images on covers of magazines. Art in New England in last July I was on the cover of that for the museum's issue. My background in Zoom, meaning the image in the background, and also you see here in the top in the middle was Miss Magazine. It was a commission for Tubman 200, the bicentennial of Harriet Tubman. And then at the bottom is Greg Tate. There's a 20+ foot mural in Brooklyn. In downtown Brooklyn of Greg Tate was created using Deep Dream and composited in Photoshop. And then this is me standing next to my self-portrait at the Smithsonian. So by request, one of the 11 portraits that I was commissioned to do, they wanted me to do a self-portrait, which was at the entrance to the exhibition. And so this was all done. And then I have a little video of me, a walkthrough of the Greg Tate. And this was sponsored by the Museum of Contemporary African Diaspora and Arts in Brooklyn. And it was not technically a commission, although they did pay me for the use of the image to create the mural. But there are many different platforms and ways in terms of the output of those images. There's pose estimation. I talked about PoseNet. It refers to AI that detects human figures and videos and images so that one can determine, for example, where the elbow shows up in an image or, shoulder and things like that. And the algorithm estimates where key body parts are. And you can see an example here from Google Creative Lab. And then we used it to do a project called Carnival Ai. Carnival Ai was a response to a couple of years ago. There was a protest on TikTok because Black creators were boycotting TikTok because white creators were taking their dances and other contributions and sort of appropriating them and getting more audience and sometimes money. And then the Black creators had nothing and they got tired of that. So they had a boycott, and we decided to create our own AI and experience using PoseNet and P5JS, which is through Processing Foundation, where you can create an app and I'll talk more about that in just a second. But here's kind of our beginning. I hired a former student of mine who is now a software engineer, but was a visual artist in high school. And it's sort of, you can see the key points that the AI is picking up on in this particular dance video, and really playing around with how to detect it in order to create And this is one of my partners for the project, Valencia James, who's a dancer from Barbados. And you can see the code there. And then we came out with this app, which is carnival-ai.com. You can see the link at the bottom. And then when you go to the app, you can dance with shapes using the postnet. And also there's a movement painting. So as you're dancing, you then paint. It creates the app, creates a painting. And we use colors from Carnival. The whole point of this was to celebrate Carnival. And at that time, which was 2021, COVID had shut down many Carnival events. And so people were meeting in Zoom parties and experiencing Carnival that way. So we did have Zoom parties with people from across the Caribbean who would come in and do, all the wine, chip, jump, wave, and dance, different dance performances that we also recorded and studied from using AI. And then we come to natural language processing. And I talked about NLPs before, where it uses text to generate images. And so Midjourney has become one of the most popular AI art generators because it allows anyone to freely create new images on command. Use the prompt imagine, /imagine, and the user can type in whatever they want to see. And the AI will return 4 newly created images in 60 seconds or around that time, depending on what's happening with the servers and the internet. So the image on the right, I was exploring reinterpreting poems and short stories by different authors that I've liked over the years, including Jean Toomer, who's a lesser known Harlem Renaissance era writer who really only had one published work called Cain, which is a series of vignettes and poems and things like that. But I read it, maybe high school, and it stayed with me, just very beautiful writing and very visual. So I reinterpreted this piece of text here in the middle of the slide and reinterpreted it for the AI, and the AI produced a series of images, including the one you see on the right, which has been really popular with people. And so the people call it the yellow globes, and you can see yellow globes in the actual text, and some other things, filaments, things that was reinterpreted by me for the AI. This is a image that was reinterpreted from lyrics from Stevie Wonder's "A Seed is a Star." So you can see the text on the left, and I reinterpreted that for the AI. And you can see what the AI came up with. It did a series of images. This is one I really like. And I'll show you all some of the others in the next slide. But there are keywords: people, Black as is your night, eternal light. There's ancestors from long ago, unfolding the mystery, and then a seed is a star, a seed's a star as a seed. And so you see all those things that the AI was able to visualize. And sometimes it takes many iterations to get to this point, meaning this actually isn't the final image, but it is one I love, even though it's not the final. And then this is the 3 images that you see together that came from this series. From Stevie Wonder, reinterpretation of Stevie Wonder, "A Seed is a Star," using Midjourney. And then a lot of these works, Toni Morrison, looking at Song of Solomon, Stevie Wonder's song Golden Lady became a reinterpretation of that, became a series of images. And because there's under demand, they're very popular, I made them available online for purchase. And so that's kind of where we can stop now and take questions.
Great. Thank you so much. That was really informative. Thank you. Sure. And I was going to remind the audience, you can put questions in the Q&A. We have a few questions in there so far, so you can put questions if you hit the Q&A button. Before we dive into answer the questions, I am going to read out the results of the poll that we did. So we asked, what is your status? And 19% are currently enrolled students, and 81% are graduating working professionals. And if a student, what level are you? Well, we have a freshman and a junior, few seniors, master's students, and PhD students. But most people attending today are not currently enrolled. And we asked to select gender. Most here are female, and a few are other. And where do you currently live? Well, about 36% are in Georgia, 56% are not in Georgia, and we have a few international people joining with us today. So welcome here to Atlanta, and also welcome back to Atlanta, Dr. Gaskins, in a virtual way, right? And then have you heard of the terms Afrofuturism and or techno-vernacular creativity? And 67% of our respondents said yes, and 25% said no. And then a few said, I've heard of them, but not sure what they really mean. And so we asked, would you be interested in viewing NFTs created by Dr. Gaskins? And the majority of people said most definitely. 78% said most definitely. So yeah, so thanks everybody for participating in the poll. And again, you're welcome to put questions in the Q&A. So Dr. Gaskins, I'm just going to dive into the questions. Somebody said they're an artist down in Savannah, Georgia, and will they be able to download the recording of this presentation? Yeah, it'll be on our YouTube channel, and also it's live on our Facebook. So you can find the presentations there. And they asked, will Dr. Gaskins be doing a demo?
It's possible. There were a couple of things to share, but I wanted to come out to the questions. I know I'll speak for about 25 minutes and then have people reflect and ask questions if they want.
Great. Somebody says, I've been following you on Instagram and it's an honor to have you here. What would you say is your signature that lets us know that this is your art?
I think one of the things that makes my work distinctive is I am a PhD and researcher, and there's a lot of research going on in the last couple of years around, I don't know, you've heard there was some backlash about the Vogue photographs of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji. I don't know if you remember that there was a lot of people upset by the washed out, very dulled photographs that were done by a very famous photographer. So there is a whole history behind this technology that we talk about that's very much biased. There's implicit bias, there's algorithmic bias. And so I was countering, and part of the reason why I'm doing this work is I'm encountering that bias through my work. So there is a kind of, I want to say patina, but I use the word gilded appearance to my images, whether it's using Deep Dream or using Midjourney. The skin pops, and the darker, the more it shines, it pops. These are all on the research side, and the science side, there's a whole bunch of stuff, research that talks about those particular qualities being something that enhances darker skin. And so that's one of the first things you'll see, those attributes in my work. You also see color. Color is my, even before when I was an undergrad or in high school, my professors were saying your work is very much very close, very colorful, very much about color interaction. And so I spent a whole year with color theory. It was required by Pratt. And so you see that color interaction in my work. And that's in the prompts, it's in the source images and styles that I give depending on the tool that I'm using. So people can usually just, because my styles are custom made, people, when they see images done with using either tool, Midjourney, Deep Dream, and so on, they will be able to identify that it's me.
Nice. And somebody says, I've been using Midjourney and I've been frustrated by the AI default of lighter skinned people when you don't put keywords in, such as Black or African, such as when people put beautiful woman. How do we think about these algorithms, racial defaults?
I get around them because with Midjourney, you can put that in the text. So, just like I showed the Stevie Wonder, he says skin dark as the night or whatever, something like that. So I reinterpret those lyrics or the poetry or those words in ways that I know that the AI can understand. And so I've been working with making art with AI for at least since 2017 as a teacher, but as an artist, I really got deeper into it in 2019. Just really understanding how AI works and what kinds of data it needs in order for it to generate something that is less, the standard. And so that does require some practice. It's not an easy task.
Using Midjourney, AI is the human, how is AI the human models generated, or is it stock source?
So as I mentioned before, AI is an agent. Midjourney is an AI agent, just like Siri and Alexa. It's pulling from thousands of images of artwork by humans in order to do what it does. If the thousands of images don't have enough Black folks, don't have enough brown folks, don't have enough people data coming, then it's not going to have that unless you give it to it. So it's not there. It can't intrinsically feel. It can't intrinsically understand. You have to be able to reinterpret it in a way that it can. And that's really the why I say it's not easy. There's a lot it takes to reinterpretation of text, but also reinterpretation of images. In order to train the machine, train the AI to give you what you want.
Somebody asked, what would you recommend for me to use my own work with AI app? What's your recommendation?
It's up to you. I prefer, like, Dolly 2 is the really hot program, but I don't like it. It doesn't give me the images I really want. So I have it and I've generated some, but I've never shared them. The output my goal is not being hyper realistic. I don't want the uncanny valley, which is what you see in film. I don't want that happening in my images. So I'm really not aiming for that. I don't want to create that sense of uneasiness in people the way you would see like the Polar Express or some other films that were trying to use computer animation to make very hyper real people. I don't really want to use AI to do that. But there is a quality that I do want to do. And so through practice and really experimenting with the AI, I feel like Midjourney is the closer to where I really would prefer to go in that direction. And then Deep Dream, of course, when you're using photographs.
Super cool. Somebody says, love your work. I think we all agree with that. And they said, I wanted to inquire about your thoughts around the issue of copyright and claim of authorship when it comes to using AI as the main outlet to create art.
So AI it's an agent. It's like Siri, so it can't do copyright. And I do see it as a collaboration with AI. As I mentioned earlier in the slide, there's a kind of range of tools, more towards the human side or more towards the machine side. Once it's all the way on the machine side, the machine has no rights. There was some argument about who's the author, but if I'm doing all the reinterpretation and the custom styles and the experimentation and the parameters and all giving that to the AI's job is just to run the algorithm. And I have to know how it runs its algorithm to know what to give it. And that's just through practice. But in the end of the day, it's not as easy as people think it is. Like I always say that anybody can use Photoshop if they have access, but you have to have certain knowledge and skills to do and use Photoshop well. The same is for Midjourney, the same is for Deep Dream and any of these tools. It's like Photoshop, it's like Alexa, it's kind of somewhere in between. And it's not intrinsic, it's not a person, it's not an author the way we think of in terms of humans. So the author really, it can be a collaboration, but you're collaborating with a machine. So, you may do more, you may even do more invasive, like you may go on the behind the scenes and behind the hood and do your own kind of stuff, then you understand it better, that it really just does whatever it's told to do. So I often push back. Anybody can use YouTube, but not everybody's Spike Lee. So, it really depends on the knowledge and skills you bring to it.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think everybody has Spike Lee's fashion style,
Sure. And I'll bring up Spike Lee shortly, but he has actually responded to me to his portrait.
Wonderful. And a proud graduate of Morehouse College.
Yes, absolutely.
AUC. Yeah, I had to put that shout out for my Morehouse brother there. Somebody says, how do you view AI art making being Afrofuturistic, and what can their benefits be for the Black community?
So I did, I think it was yesterday or day before, I was commissioned by the Social Sciences Research Council to do a field report on the biases in AI and how art sort of counters that. So I'll put the link in the chat, but I think it really gets to the issues, but also how artists are kind of vigilant and how they're kind of countering what's happening in terms of algorithmic bias that's happening. And I'm just going to put that in the chat now. And so the benefits of countering it with art is, instead of being the harms and the risk and looking at the benefits, and in terms of creative expression being one of the ways to do that, that's the very first thing, is having people be able to have sort of a liberated status of using AI in a creative way, as opposed to being consumers and being victims of the kinds of AI that people are creating. But there's a history in this in terms of technology. The article I just posted gets at that. It talks about bias in film and photography and computer graphics and in AI and facial recognition AI, as well as some other types of AI that has been used for surveillance and for ways that have not been beneficial for Black and Brown communities. And then you have the artists who are countering that using the AI in creative ways. And as it relates to Afrofuturism, for many years, there's the speculative side, which I think is, of course, the literature, the films, all that kind of stuff. But then there's people who make, and those are the people that prototype, they create designs, they create architecture, they use the idea of that you find in Afrofuturism in ways that show up and that you can touch, that's tangible, and or something that you can hang up, but you can make it. And I think those two things are happening, the speculative and the making side. And I think Afrofuturism you can put in cyborg in your text and get very different, more Blade Runner type of imagery, or you can use your, like I do, poetry or my own imagination to create some images. And some of them are done from an Afrofuturistic lens. So it really is up to the imagination of the human who's using the tool.
Super cool. Somebody said, I've enjoyed the talk and look forward to watching it again. There was such great depth and I was able to follow. They asked if you would speak on your journey to reach this level of excellence and achievement, the barriers, the challenges. What were your sources of resilience when there wasn't this level of visibility, recognition, appreciation, or love of your work or for your work?
There still isn't a lot of embracing of digital artists in general and traditional art settings. And many times I was made fun of for using some technology to make art, including virtual worlds many years ago. I've never been, and meaning in my entire life, been someone who is easily swayed from something I really want to do, whether it's getting a PhD from Georgia Tech or going into Second Life and creating the Afrofuturism exhibition with IBM. All these things are just exciting opportunities for me, and it kind of doesn't really matter if people think it's cool. But things sort of caught up over time. So the concept compositing that I do with Midjourney, for example, I've been doing since the early 90s with Photoshop. So I have images that I did as a grad student, very similar process to doing what I'm doing with Midjourney today. I just kind of kept at it on the side and did other work, but I never kind of gave up on it. And then there's this opportunity. And so I do want to share, and I didn't share this earlier, sort of the gallery of deep dream images that were first before Midjourney, and I'll answer some other questions about the process that way. Since 2019 at least, you can see here that I've been exploring this idea of what's called specular reflection or shine, using custom styles, and this is Coretta Scott King, this is Sam Cooke, using GANs and using image editing tools. So using generative adversarial network tool called Deodify. I use that for the Sam Cooke image as well as Photoshop. And here's Dorothy Dandridge This is Spike Lee. He's actually seen this 2 days ago. He responded using Deep Dream. So these are all Deep Dream images. Leontine Price, Michael K. Williams, Roberta Flack. So these portraits aren't for sale, but this is one of Miles Davis. I am working with Jesse Dillon, who's Bob Dylan's son, working with the Miles Davis family and estate to do a collection of Miles Davis NFTs. I did do a demonstration of Midjourney for Jesse Dillon and his company, and that's kind of how I got the gig, but they saw these images first, including his nephew. So someone from the estate has seen this image. And again, just really sharing the possibilities of what is possible using the technology. Then I usually share my work on Instagram. And here, this is one from Midjourney for Serena Williams, and like giving her flowers. And I didn't put the text prompt, but it is Midjourney and Serena. But right there, you see on the right, there is Spike Lee, who's interested in buying the piece. So Spike has taken some interest in the work as well.
So I have to ask, did Brother Spike, did he liked his photo?
He does. His question was, is it for sale? And it wasn't. But of course, he can get it if he wants the portrait, he can have it.
It's Spike. What can he do, right? Yeah.
Well, he wants to buy it. So usually when they want to buy it, they want to buy it very large. So that's a whole nother conversation. It's more like a commission than a easy. Yeah, but there's a lot of interest. Queen Latifah has, followed me on Instagram. So there's a lot of interest from celebrities and just regular folks who just like looking at the images every day.
So you talked about commissions, and somebody said, I recently saw a Facebook post of someone who was charging for Midjourney commissions by soliciting for assorted search terms. What are your thoughts on this ethics of practice? They say, I'm not an expert in this at all, but it felt like paying someone to Google something for you, and it rubbed me the wrong way.
One of the things that I'm a Ford Global Fellow, and one of the things that I've been doing is thinking a lot about how I want the work to get to people. Part of the reason why we're not in the discourses around what happens with art and AI currently, meaning Black and brown people by and large. There's outliers out there who are part of the discussion, but most people are more consumers than anything. But when people see the images, they want to know how it's made. They want to try it out. They want to enter that space. And so I really try to, if they want to purchase the Midjourney images, there's a store, and then make it reasonably cost, in terms of people can get in there, and if they want get a print. But my goal is not to make a lot of money. I didn't do this. I did this to learn it. I did it to enjoy it. These images are therapeutic for me. So the fact that they're therapeutic for others, that's great. Or it makes their day, or they look forward to it. They're always sending me direct messages about it. So I really, when I see other people, someone's gonna see it as a hustle because they either need it or it's just what they do. I am not that person necessarily. I don't give away for free because it costs money to make. I'm actually, when you're using Midjourney, and I'll do for a couple of minutes, I'll show what it looks like inside Midjourney. And Deep Dreams, there's a question about Deep Dream. Deep Dream, use your own photos. And there's the Instructable that I mentioned before, that it's all the steps to use Deep Dream. So that's on the Instructables website. The last question about generators export layers. I do all the layering myself, the compositing from the output of the AI. So once I have, and so it's a back and forth, I call call and response, back and forth with the AI and then I do the compositing, usually in Photoshop, to create the final image. And sometimes the image is perfect right out of the AI, and I don't need to do that, but sometimes I do. And so it just depends on what my goal is with the work. So there's a link in the chat about the bias in AI and how artists are responding, and some of those artists are Afrofuturists. And now I'm going to share my screen and show what it looks like inside of Midjourney, and then there probably might be room for one or more question. So if you're going to do if you're going to use a Midjourney, you need to have a Discord account. And so this is what it looks like when I go into my Discord account. And so when you start off, you're usually going to go to this, and you have to set up your Discord account and your own personal server that connects to this Midjourney bot, and then you can start generating images. You can generate up to 25 images for free. And there's a bot in there. And once you hit 25, we'll let you know that you can move over to a $10 a month thing or a $30 a month thing. $10 is like 100 images, and then $30 is kind of unlimited. So if you want to really go deep, and I went for the $30 a month thing. So this is what it looks like. There's it's a community. And so you can look at the newbies. This is where I started, and see when you're in this setting, you can see everyone's text prompts. So you see their text prompts, you see their thumbnails that they got from their text prompts. So it's very open. And then at some point I was really, really going deep, and then the bot said, nope, you're not a newbie anymore. Why don't you try like general? So then I went and tried the general or one of the other channels. And then, like you can see here, and after a while it said, no, maybe, you're really going deep here. Why don't you use your own channel, your own? So it booted me out of there too. And now I'm in my own private channel, which is here. And I'm just going to show one more thing and we can stop. So this is what it looks like in my channel. And so you can see my prompts here and see the message at the bottom. This is how I communicate to the bot or to the AI. And I do a lot of sketching and iteration until I get the images that I want. So it's not easy. You can generate an image and say, hey, here it is, it's cool. But in my case, it's all about the output, about the colors, it's about all the kinds of things that I'm really interested in terms of what is possible. And then there's some compositing, some things that may happen in Photoshop afterward. So that's Midjourney.
Great. So I think that's some great advice for somebody who's coming into the field, how they can go through the different levels there. That's great. So I asked one more question. They said, what are your top 2 tips for using AI art?
Try something new. Once you get your feet wet, once you become more acclimated to the platform, try to do something new. I like Midjourney because you can see what other people are doing and try what they do. Maybe remix what they did, but also start to realize that the more so in 2019 with Deep Dream, I decided to make an image I liked a day for 365 days. Somewhere around the middle toward the end of that process, people said my images got better. So I began to master the tool. But it took a lot of practice. That's the other tip. It's going to take time and effort, even with these tools that are free and you think that they're easy. It's not an easy thing to create images that people think that really resonate with people. So it does take a lot of practice.
That's great advice. And somebody is looking for you to come and do a solo exhibition in Toronto. If you still have the time. And I'll just echo the remarks. Just thanks a million for your time and energy and for all that you've shared with us today. I know I've just been blown away from the artwork. I've seen you around social media in different venues, and I really appreciate and admire the work that you do, and also the tenacity to persevere when other people didn't appreciate, but you did, and you stayed steadfast. So thank you, Dr. Gaskins, for your work. Thank you for your perseverance and for really just sharing with us the insights on how you do the amazing things that you do.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for joining us today. This will be posted on our YouTube, and it's already on our Facebook page. And we hope to see you all around the data science world.